Welcome back to Success with Steven. My name is Steven Smith. On this channel, we discuss all things financial literacy. What if I told you that setting aside just $100 per week can make you $1 million? At first glance, that doesn't seem like much. It feels like the cost of a dinner out, a new pair of shoes, or maybe even a small grocery run. But if invested wisely and consistently, that $100 can snowball into a fortune that can change your entire life. Over the past decade, one particular investment has returned an average of more than 21% annually. And that kind of performance is the reason why so many people have reached financial independence and even retired decades earlier than expected. And the best part, you don't need a trust fund, you don't need a six-figure salary or a Wall Street connection to begin. You can start with a single dollar and you can scale up to $100 each week or more than that, whichever your budget would allow. In this breakdown, I'll show you exactly how to take that $100 and spread it into a simple three-part portfolio. This strategy balances growth, diversification, and income so you can accelerate your journey to financial freedom. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. One of the biggest misconceptions about investing is that you need a lot of money to get started. A lot of people wait until they have thousands of dollars saved before they begin. The truth is that time is more powerful than the amount that you start with. And I know this is really hard for people to grasp because they're always worried about what can I get right now, like immediate gratification. But even investing just $100 every week, it adds up. That's $400 per month. That's about $5,200 per year. With compound growth, those small, consistent contributions can turn into something much bigger over time. For example, if you invest $100 per week into a portfolio averaging around 10% per year, after 20 years, that would have contributed about $104,000, but your portfolio could be worth around $300,000 because of compounding. If you stretch that out to 30 years, now you're talking about building real long-term wealth. But here's the problem. A lot of people want to invest $100 or more every week, but their credit situation or their income situation is holding them back. Bad credit can cost you money through higher interest rates, denials, deposits, limited approvals, and fewer financial options. So that means instead of putting money more into investments, you may be losing money to expensive debt and bad financial terms. This is where fixing your credit becomes part of your wealth building strategy. If you can clean up inaccurate negative items, improve your credit profile, get some approvals, get lower interest rates, and stop overpaying for credit, that can free up more money for you to invest consistently. And that's exactly where Rising can help. Now, Rising is an all-in-one credit repair platform that gives you access to your credit reports and your scores, and it shows you what may be hurting your credit. It also helps you take action with tools like dispute letters and templates and bureau response tracking. You can use Rising as your 90-day credit improvement system. You also get a personalized credit game plan as well as score tracking, goal tracking, education, guidance on products like secured cards and credit builder loans. It also includes up to 24 months of rental and utility trade lines that can back report payment history, helping you add positive on-time payments up to 2 years of account age to your credit profile instantly. So if your goal is to start investing $100 or more consistently, don't just focus on making more money. Also focus on fixing your credit because that problem can be the most costly one. Right now, you can access your credit report through Rising's $1 7-day trial. There'll be a link down in the description. There'll also be a clickable link here on screen. Let's talk about the first stop for our weekly $100. It's going to be the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, better known by its ticker symbol VTI. And out of our $100, I would suggest putting $50 here. So why are we starting with VTI? Well, that's because it's one of the most complete and diversified investments available to everyday investors. With a single purchase, you own a slice of over 3,500 US companies, and that includes massive giants like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, and Meta, but also thousands of smaller companies that most people never even heard of. With VTI, your money is spread across different parts of the economy with roughly 42% in technology, 12.80% in consumer discretionary companies, and about 11.80% in industries. Now, these will be be up to date as of 2026, but of course, as time goes on, this will change, among various other sectors, and normally they change due to active management decisions or a shift in the underlying index that the ETF will track. VTI essentially mirrors the US economy, so when the economy grows, VTI grows. When technology surges, manufacturing is booming, or consumer spending spikes, you benefit because VTI is spread across nearly every sector. Another reason VTI is such an attractive foundation is its cost. Now, every ETF has something called an expense ratio. Now, that is the fee that's deducted from the fund's asset to cover operational cost. In VTI's case, the fund's expense ratio is just 0.03%. So that means if you invest $10,000, only $3 goes towards the management fee each year. Now, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I have a pretty old video, but it's called The Best ETFs to Buy and Hold Forever. You can watch that video. I go over what ETFs are and different types of brokerage accounts and what you can do to purchase them, as well as more information on expense ratios and my other favorite ETFs that I think you should be buying. Now, back to VTI. Nearly all of your money stays invested and continues compounding for you. Performance-wise, VTI has been no slouch, and over the last decade, it has delivered an average annual return of 15.11%. Even in the past year alone, it's returned 11.47%. Now, that's going to be as of June or July of 2026. These are the latest screenshots, but of course, these will change. Now, it's not flashy, but this is very powerful. So by putting $50 of your weekly $100 into VTI, you would be ensuring that your portfolio is always grounded in the entire stock market, and that diversification is always best. Now that we've built a solid foundation, it's time to turn up the growth potential. Now, the next piece of our $100 will go into the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, or VGT. Here we'll allocate about $30 each week. Now, VGT is a focused fund zeroing in on about 323 technology companies. This includes the most influential and innovative players of our time, like Nvidia, like Microsoft, Apple, Broadcom, and Oracle, among some others. Technology has driven much of the economic growth over the past few decades, and it continues to be the engine of progress. From artificial intelligence to cloud computing to semiconductors, tech will touch nearly every single industry. VGT allows you to capture that explosive growth in a single investment, and the fund's sector breakdown shows you just how forward-looking it is, with 37.90% in semiconductors, 19.60% in technology hardware, and nearly 14.90% in system software, which makes up a majority of this ETF. These are the companies building the tools, the platforms, and the infrastructure that powers our digital lives. And the results speak for themselves because over the last 10 years, VGT has averaged an incredible 25.43% annual return. The fund's expense ratio is 0.09%, so that means if you invest $10,000, only $9 goes towards management fees every single year. And in the past year, VGT has returned 60.41%. Now, that type of performance is why so many investors pair a broad market fund like VTI with a specialized growth fund like VGT. One provides stability while the other accelerates your wealth building journey. By putting $30 of your weekly investment into VGT, you're giving your portfolio the rocket fuel that it needs to potentially shorten your path to financial independence. The final piece of our $100 strategy is the Vanguard Real Estate ETF, ticker VNQ, and each week $20 will go here. Now, why would we want real estate in the mix when stocks have historically delivered stronger returns? The answer lies in diversification and income. VNQ invest in around 145 real estate investment trusts, also known as REITs, which are companies that own and operate income-producing properties. This would include healthcare facilities, rental centers, office buildings, and even telecom towers. And by holding VNQ, you gain exposure to a part of the economy that doesn't always move in sync with the stock market. When tech stocks are volatile, real estate often provides stability. The sector breakdown of VNQ leans heavily on income-producing real estate, with 16.50% invested in healthcare REITs, 14.2% in retail REITs, and 11.8% in industrial REITs. But here's the trade-off. Over the past decade, VNQ has averaged only 5.44% per year. In the last 12 months, it returned 11.42%, which is still actually good. But that's a far cry from the stronger results from VTI and VGT. So again, why does this still deserve a spot in the portfolio? Because VNQ brings something the others can't: direct exposure to real estate. While VTI and VGT spread your money across the stock market, VNQ invest in companies that actually own and manage physical properties. Real estate doesn't always move in lockstep with technology or the broader market, which means including VNQ can help smooth out the ups and downs of your portfolio. Now, VNQ's performance over the last decade has been modest compared to VTI and VGT at about 5.44% annually. The fund's expense ratio is 0.13%, which is higher than VTI or VGT because that means if you invest $10,000, $13 goes towards management fees every single year. However, this is still low compared to most real estate funds. But here is where it shines: income. VNQ currently pays a dividend yield of about 3.54%, so that is 3 times higher than VTI and significantly more than VGT. This income can play 2 roles in your financial plan. So while you're still building wealth, you can reinvest those dividends to buy more shares, compounding your growth even further. Later on, when you're closer to your financial independence, you can use the dividend income as part of your cash flow to cover expenses. So adding VNQ to the portfolio doesn't replace growth, but it does balance it out. It also brings in consistent income and smooths out the ride when the market gets a little bit bumpy. Let's recap why we chose these 3 ETFs. The answer is that together they cover 3 essential pillars of a strong portfolio. First, VTI will give you diversification. You're not betting on one company, one industry, or even one sector. You're invested in nearly the entire US economy. Second, VGT brings growth. It focuses on companies shaping the future and has a track record of delivering outstanding long-term returns. And third, VNQ provides balance in income. It invests in real estate, which doesn't perfectly correlate with the stock market, and it pays dividends that can either compound your wealth or support your lifestyle in the future. With $100 a week, the allocation breaks down to $50 in VTI, $30 in VGT, and $20 in VNQ. That's a 50-30-20 split that covers diversification, growth, and income in one simple package. Now, let's really bring this to life with an example because numbers on a page don't always hit home until you see them in action. Imagine someone named John. Now, John isn't a Wall Street genius. He's not sitting on a trust fund. He's just a regular guy with a regular paycheck. Now, every week, instead of blowing $100 on takeout or entertainment, he decides to invest it. He sticks with our exact strategy: 50% into VTI, 30% into VGT, and 20% into VNQ. Now, here's what the mix looks like in terms of performance. VTI has averaged about 15.11% annually over the past decade. VGT, which has been the tech rocket ship, has averaged a massive 25.43%. And VNQ, the real estate play, has brought in about 5.44% with the added benefit of steady dividends. When you combine those 3 with their weights, you get what's called a blended return. Half of John's portfolio rides the 15.11% from VTI, 30% taps into that 25.43% from VGT, and the last 20% gets the 5.44% from VNQ. Add all of that together and John's portfolio has an average annual return of 15.3% roughly. Now, here's where it gets exciting. John invests $100 every single week. Once again, that's $5,200 per year. After 10 years of consistency, his portfolio has grown to roughly $113,000. Remember, his contribution was only about $52,000, but compound growth did the heavy lifting. Now, if we push that out to 20 years, John's portfolio will cross around $420,000. Again, he only put in around $104,000, but the growth multiplied his money by 4. Now, imagine that John will keep this up for 30 years. At that point, his portfolio doesn't just grow, it would explode. That $100 a week would build into more than $1.6 million. All because he stuck to the plan and let the power of compounding and that 15.3% average return work for him. And the point here isn't that John is some outlier, because he's really not. Anyone can do this with discipline, patience, and consistency. The secret isn't a one-time big win. It's showing up week after week, putting your money to work and letting time do the rest for you. Now, some of you might be wondering, that's great for 20 or 30 years down the line, but what if I want to hit $1 million faster? Well, let's walk through that. We already know that our blended portfolio has averaged around 15.4% annually over the past decade. So now let's flip the question. Instead of asking how much you'll end up with if you invest $100 a week, let's ask how much would you need to invest each week to hit $1 million in just 10 years? So here's the math. To get $1 million in a decade at a 15.3% return, you would need to invest about $1,000 per week. That's roughly $4,000 a month, or just under $52,000 per year. Now, I know that number might sound big, but just think about this. If you're already running a business, if you have a high paying career, or you can find ways to drastically increase your income and reduce your expenses, it's not impossible. I mean, I've done it myself, and the payoff will be massive. But consistently putting $1,000 a week into this strategy, you're setting yourself up to cross the $1 million mark in just a single decade. And even if you can't quite swing $1,000 a week, every step closer you get makes a huge difference. Maybe you start with $200 or $300 per week. That doesn't get you $1 million in 10 years, but it could put you halfway there. And over 15 or 20 years, that same consistency will still build serious wealth. The takeaway here is that the formula will always work. The only thing that will change is how much fuel you're willing to add to the fire. Financial independence isn't about hitting the lottery or landing a massive windfall. It's about building habits that stack in your favor over time. Now, $100 a week may not seem life-changing today, but give it 5, 10, or 20 years, and the results can be extraordinary. And very quickly, I want to address the people in the comments with their excuses, because everybody always has them. They'll say, oh, I didn't account for inflation, or I didn't bring up something about taxes, or it takes too long, or will they get an extra X amount of dollars, etc. People that stay in a financial deficiency versus people that are financially wealthy, there's one distinction between those two people, and it is your mindset. I can guarantee that. I remember when I bought my first stock, it was with T-Mobile. At the time, I was working for them and the IPO had just launched. So I bought about like $50 worth of stock and I forgot about it. And then I must have looked at it about like 3 years later and it was $115. And I said to myself exactly what you're probably thinking right now. That's nothing. And see, that is the mindset issue that I'm talking about. Because if you put $50 into something and you got $115 back, you actually just got over 100% of a return on your investment. If I told anybody right now who was wealthy, hey, if you give me your X amount of dollars, I can give you a 100% return, they would do backflips because that is extraordinary. So I know that isn't a lot of money relative to the cost of living, but that just means you should probably put in more money, right? You guys have to stop looking at money as in what it can get me and start looking at the math. If I put $1,000 somewhere and got 100%, that's $2,000. It's not just finance, it's your time, it's your decisions, everything compounds. Eventually, if you do this long enough, you won't even think about it anymore. And that's what success is about. You'll start doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but then eventually you become what you put all of your time into. Building wealth is easy after you put in the work in the beginning. And you don't have to be smart to do it. You just have to be disciplined and consistent. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you got any value out of this, please leave a comment, and you can actually leave a comment with your favorite ETF. Maybe I missed a better ETF that you're interested in, or you can leave a comment with $100, or just leave a comment and said, I made it to the end. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter how you slice it, even if you repaired your credit, even if you started a cash flowing business and you were making 6 figures every single year, that is only increasing your income. Maybe you have more money than the average person, but for how long? You need to be worried about investing that money into places where it can compound faster than it can actually get eroded by inflation. So this is just one very easy strategy that I think anybody could follow. There are much more aggressive strategies that can make this happen faster, but speed should not always be the answer you're looking for. What you're really looking for is consistency and discipline. The fastest path to success, the fastest path to wealth is always the long one. I know people don't want to hear that, but honest to God, that's the truth. No matter how you slice it, everything takes time. Once again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. You guys have a wonderful day, and I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next one.